877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and FreedomSlips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Stumbling down the road with Bridget Lynn Dolgoff as she carries stones, digs holes, and wheels her shovels on her way. This road is the real path. It is never easy and never clear, but always entertaining. This journey has not been a seated event, as Bridget walks, runs, stumbles, carries, digs, drags, laughs, fights, sings, prays, dances, kicks, screams, and oftentimes falls.
Hey everybody, I hope the promos are over, but hey, this is your Carrying Stones and Digging Holes, Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time to 3 p.m. Eastern Time, and I am your host, Bridget Lynn Dolgoff, and we are listener supported, and you can go to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com, and you can look at the funding link and give you all kinds of ideas, give you all kinds of ideas on how to fund us if you want to just kind of slap down some donations. And we have like all kinds of heirloom seeds and just, you know, a lot of different stuff that you can help our station. All of us, we are volunteers, the whole network and hosts. So we always could use your help. All right, so today, we are kind of going into legal land, and I have a return guest, Ken Doust. And Ken, are you there? Hello, Ken. Uh-oh.
I am. How are you doing?
Oh, good. Good.
I'm sorry, I muted there for a second.
I'm like, oh, no, sometimes that happens. My guests get dropped, and I have to pay attention because I'll be talking to no one.
No, I'm here. How are you?
I'm doing really good. So anyway, I haven't, Ken is a return guest in the past. I don't think I've talked to you since maybe like October.
Yeah, it's been a while, a little bit.
Yeah, and Ken kind of has like a special kind of path with a lot of the legal stuff that he's studying and understanding and trying to learn how to apply as he's, you know, going down the path of learning, you know, legal language and everything else. So I have no idea what he's going to talk about, but I know it's going to be really interesting. So go ahead and let us, can you kind of give us a brief update of like what's been going on since October? Anything
Sure.
significant, and then, you know, flash flood into the new stuff?
Well, there's a lot of significant things going on. First of all, as far as legal lingo and jargon, I kind of gave up on that a long time ago. I've gone the administrative path and actually the private road. I found that these mortgage loans that we all signed for with MERS, there's one thing that we missed with these loans that we were never given, which was the disclosure of a trademark and disclosure of this little circle R that they left out, intentionally left out of the mortgage loan disclosure, and that brings in a whole second separate contract that's hidden from us. And in that contract, it basically says that you and I and whoever signs those contracts give away all rights, title, interest to all our assets and properties, to our name, to everything that we own or ever will own, and we give a blanket power of attorney with no restrictions so that they can sign and stamp our signature to anything. And that's what they've done. And because this document, this Fannie Freddie uniform instrument that it's called, this thing was set up under a mandate, actually, a presidential mandate under Tricky Dick of all people. And it mandated that this contract is to be spelled clearly within the four corners, and that there's to be no hidden or concealed terms for the consumer fairness. And so it went like that for since 1975. Also with that, though, was attached uniform codes and statutes to ensure that consumers were treated fairly, and that this document remained pristine in the sense of no outside or hidden terms. And so that was integrated in code, but they also integrated a prescriptive path to foreclosure. And then the court came in and they figured, well, since we've given the consumer every accommodation on the origination, in terms of no unscrupulous lenders or no hidden terms or anything, we're going to go ahead and take cognizance of this contract, and we're going to make it an unimpeachable contract. So what's happened here is when they added MERS in 1999 and snuck that little guy in there, they snuck in a huge fraud by not disclosing that circle R, so they can get the unimpeachable contract from the court and then have the prescriptive path
Ken, are you
to
there?
foreclosure. Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
okay. You got cut out for just a second. Okay, go ahead.
So what they did, this is real important, what they did is they were able to, by not disclosing a key disclosure that really is materially pertinent to us, it's of utmost material importance, because they didn't disclose that, but they still had the unimpeachable contract from the court taking cognizance of it, and the prescriptive path. Now, prescriptive path is from Ballantyne's Law Dictionary, 3rd edition. Prescribe is to lay down beforehand as a rule of action, to ordain, appoint, define authoritatively, to impose as a preemption order, to dictate, appoint, and direct. So what they did was, with the creation of this instrument, this standard form instrument back in 1975, they assured that we were protected, but they also assured that lenders would be able to collect in defaults by this prescriptive path. So the reason why nobody could stop these foreclosures is because the court's cognizance is an unimpeachable contract. Nobody has a defense. You can't defend them, as we found out.
Right. So can you tell us what MERS stands for? I was asking questions for just the average Joe out there.
MERS stands for Mortgage Electronic Registration Systems, Inc., and the acronym for that is MERS. And what it actually does is it has nothing to do with a mortgage loan to real property. It has to do with a mortgage to intellectual properties. They came in, and through this hidden contract of MERS, actually the contract is between MERS and Nations Bank, which is Bank of America. And in that, it's an 18-page agreement that basically details, it's a proxy agreement that somebody else agreed to for us, that's imposed upon us within that mortgage loan. And what they've done is they've basically said, well, you're gonna agree to give us all rights, title, and interest in your name, and we're gonna be able to stamp, sign documents, sign checks. We're even gonna be able to open up your own mail and discard mail and sign the checks and whatnot. So what they've done is these attorneys, they have engineered a brilliant, devious, and it's devious and evil and unlawful, immoral, and even illegal by their own codes and statutes, a system to steal trillions, to embezzle trillions out of this country, and to put over 20 million people on the street from foreclosure. This is big because this is something that is concrete that we can lay our hats on with these guys to try to finally start nailing these attorneys and these unlawful practices that have been taking place.
Yeah, one of the things too that because my specialty is kind of in medicine and that kind of stuff, and so I consider medical doctors probably the most evil people on the planet because they hide everything, right? They're the brokers. And with loans, mortgage loans, you have the real estate agent that is the broker. So they could literally, blame the real estate broker because the broker is doing the dirty deal for the bank.
Well, they can't really use that excuse in this case. I mean, they could, but the ultimate what this ultimately comes down to is this was fixed from the very beginning. You had attorneys and law firms, in conjunction with and in collusion with the business of banking, engineering these patented processes, automated business methods for like loan origination and debt reparation and investment and all these things. And what these attorneys did, they fixed these patents so that it goes to their benefit. So in other words, they've manipulated information, they forged signatures, they arrange for accesses because they have that blanket power of attorney. They arrange so that they can enter into our records without anybody knowing it and changing those records. So what they've done is they've engineered a system of fraud behind the scenes in these patented processes. And then what they do is they overlay that onto the government servers, and what happens? Now you got a contaminated system.
Yeah. Well, not trying to, but every stage of it, there's corruption, right? Because even
yeah, absolutely.
Even
the problem with
the real estate agent, they don't know that they're colluding with this crime.
No, they don't. They don't. I mean, the person at the closing room table who told you that MERS was a utility function of Fannie and Freddie, they had no clue that they were basically committing fraud. They had no clue. They're innocent.
Well, but I mean, if you're in real estate for a certain amount of time and you haven't investigated, their system, to come up with your own conclusion, then I think it falls on you. I mean, even if you're not really innocent because you've been making a lot of money yourself.
Well, I don't know if it does or doesn't. I mean, they've done a brilliant scheme of engineering. I call it engineering model behavior. And what they've managed to do is they've managed to flip common sense on its head, essentially. We're all under the impression that this is true and correct, and it is true and correct. If you default on your mortgage loan, you should lose your home. That's common sense. And it does make sense. However, if it was different times, these times are different. What they've done is back in 1990, the world changed in 1998. In 1998, there was a court ruling between State Street versus Signature Financial Group. And what this ruling was for the approval that automated business methods were patentable. And that day, the world changed. Everything changed at that point. Because the moment that they were able to engineer these business methods, and this particular one that was for that case was called the hub and spoke patent. And what that process did was it basically went and sought out every single tax loophole that there is. And that's what this patent was. And to be patentable, the result has to produce a concrete and tangible result. Court decided that the results that were put into a broker's hands from this algorithmic process and this hub and spoke patent that he could then take to his clients and advise them on, they determined that was the concrete and tangible result, which I think is ridiculous. But nonetheless, that's what it was. And so that really opened up the door. And from that day forward, everything's changed. And then in 2001, when the UCC 9 revised Article 9 was enacted, that all has to do with collateralization, resecuritization, rehypothecation, and fractionalization of intellectual properties, which is our name. And that changed everything. Because what it did was it allowed them to take our name and rehypothecate it and sell it time over and again. And that's what they've done. And now, rightfully speaking, the question should be, well, why am I not getting a cut of that? Where's my cut of it? It's my property, right?
Yeah, well, it seems like they've done this a lot. I mean, right now, a lot of what I've been seeing. Oh, sorry, let me get back here. One of the big things that I see that they're trying to claim as intellectual property is blood and DNA. I mean,
yes.
There's a move with the banking system that in order to get a bank account in the future, that you have to give them 2 samples of drops of blood that they, basically scientifically figure out what the structure and everything is and what your DNA blueprint is, and then you get a bank account based on that. So
that's interesting.
Yeah,
but they've already taken our DNA. I mean, Merrill Lynch.
Merrill
Lynch has put us into a company called.
But it's becoming blatant. I mean, the thing is, more blatant. And the other thing too is like they've patented our seeds.
Nobody's put our finger on it or our attention on it.
Yeah, so we have like the native seed movement now that are bringing seeds, that are like 5,000 years old back out into the community and starting to grow them because they're not part of the intellectual, property. But they've everything. It's not just the banking system when you go into AT&T, hypothetically. You sign a contract saying, you give me a free phone and I'll pay for service, but it's a loan because, me having a service 2 years pays off the phone, basically, right? So this kind of stuff can be used against you that way. They can get your signature for a $50 phone.
Yep. Well, what it is we're the energy plant. We are the energy plant. That all caps name a lot of people think is fiction. It's not fiction. Fiction doesn't affect your life. These are things that all caps name has a direct effect on your life. And you just illustrated that. But to say that it's their name and it's not ours is wrong. That the reason why that all caps name, Kenneth W. Dost, all capital letters. The reason why that name exists is because of the little infant that breathed life, that gave existence to form. And that is so that's ours. It's the form of our body and soul that's separated. That is out there in the universe. That is ours. It's our energy, and that energy is what's financing all these companies and financing everything. I mean, the DNA, financing medical research, financing agriculture, financing everything. We're the energy behind this, and they've captivated that and stole that from us so that they can build up their own businesses and basically take press. I mean, well, they've conquered us. It's a coup d'etat. It's enslavement.
Total identity theft. Like, you don't have to worry about identity theft because it's already happened.
Yes. I laugh when I see those LifeLock commercials, and I just laugh. I think, oh my God, are you serious? You guys already stole our identity. You stole it. And they have, and it's because nobody's put any kind of a spotlight on patents and trademarks, and we're focusing on all kinds of other things. Like for mortgages, we're focusing on trying to defend these mortgage loans there's just no way we can defend them. And then the basic fact of the matter is they're not mortgage loans; they're investment accounts for us.
Yeah. No, and you know what? No, I mean, the whole thing is like so unbelievably flawed. So there's somebody I follow, and her name is Abby Martin. She's an amazing journalist. She used to be with RT, but she left and she created her own channel called the Empire Files on YouTube. Anyway, yesterday she had a interview with a guy, I forget what his name is, something like Giants Who Runs the World kind of a thing. And he talks about how there are only, he did all this research for all these years and then wrote this book on the kind of the global elite, if you want to call them that. And he said that only 8 people in the world own 50% of everything.
I'd agree with that. I would agree with that.
He said like 119 own, together they own like 80% of the world. But I mean, the top 8 own 50% of the world because this is what they've done. They've stole everybody's identities. They've
That's right.
created a Ponzi scheme.
It's the Rothschild method. I mean, Rothschilds came in and they what they've done is they've established themselves and their names under every possible industry you could possibly think of, and by doing so, they've captured the whole industry. I mean, everything. I mean, hats, the apparel that we wear, it is captured. Cosmetics is a huge area for this identity theft. It's anything that's applied to our body, anything that's a sustenance to our body, anything, any industry whatsoever. These, as you mentioned, these top people have captured the whole industries,
yeah,
the whole entire sectors, and it's done by identity theft.
Yeah, and they don't care, because they've monopolized everything and they only allow us to have, these are your options. I mean, we think we have options, but we have no options.
We have no freedoms whatsoever.
Yeah.
None.
So then what they do is they don't care if they put lead in their cosmetics. They don't care if they spray poisons on the food. They don't care if there's fecal matter. Yesterday, there was an article that now it's legal for meat in the U.S. to have fecal matter contamination.
Oh my gosh!
And there's an organization that's trying to fight to, at least for them to be forced labeling the meat. You know what I mean?
Well, I think what they're doing is they're using us as guinea pigs, obviously, and and then they'll come down the road 5 or 10 years later and sit there and have a huge mesothelioma. You know, they have this big, huge, multi-billion-dollar settlement fund after they've done all the damage.
Yeah, it doesn't really pay for your life. You know, it doesn't really pay.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
For your
not
life.
At all.
You know, the
not
other thing too, check this out. So I watched this documentary, and then I'll let you go on about what you want to go on. But I want people to realize out there, like, you know, that there's a lot going on. And like you said, it covers every possible thing in our world, you know, that they control.
And you wouldn't think it, because it's an intellectual property. You know, nobody really understands what intellectual properties is. And you know, my understanding of a patent, it used to be, you know, Alexander Graham Bell or something that was tangible, something that contributed to society. But now what we've got is a patent system that is basically enslaved society. And it's hard for people to realize that. Well, how can an automated program do this stuff? Well, you know, when you control like you said, AT&T, when you control the media, when you have control of everything, it's very easy to take control of the name and to abuse it and manipulate it and exploit it through these patented processes and to take away all your rights. And that's exactly what they've done.
Yeah.
And to me, I think that and this is prima facie. It's prima facie on an entire embodiment of patents. I mean, we can show, actually it shows itself, that these attorneys, and this is the question I have, is like, where is the legal when you have law firms that are manipulating and creating patents in collusion with the business of banking that are designed and engineered to steal people's estates, to steal their homes, to harm them, to find that they're mentally incompetent when they're not, you know, to take their children away from them when their children shouldn't be taken away from them, to award judges and SWAT teams for bursting into people's homes at 3 o'clock in the morning to drag them out on an eviction. I mean, this is madness, but this is all originating from patents. And so where is the...
Yeah. I was just going to say, so I've been watching this first season of this documentary, People, and they're it's called The Killing Season, and I just finished the first season, but they are journalists, and they're going out and they're videotaping all this stuff, and that, like, law enforcement, the good guys, there's very few of them in the FBI or, you know, the law enforcement, but they're saying, like, okay, people are creating these databases for all these missing women and murdered women across the United States. And they're coming out with statistics that now there's 200 to 300 serial killers operating in the United States now, right? There are whole areas where there are bodies like buried, and these serial killers call them trophy areas, and they talk to each other about it, you know, like, oh, that's my area over there in New Mexico. Oh yeah, I'm building a new area over here. And they, like, it's super crazy. Well, one of the guys, the law enforcement guy, says, like, in the 60s, they were solving 90% of all the crimes, including murder. Now it's 8% because law enforcement and FBI don't really care about that. They've shifted their focus to terrorists, which are outside of the country.
Yeah, you know what's funny
and so
about
they're
that?
not solving these murders. And they say that there's probably like 20,000, I think it was like 20,000 women are missing and they suspect murdered every year.
Wow.
Across the whole United States. And they show you these clusters. There's this guy who's created this database. But that shows you at the level of like what even the law enforcement is not doing anymore. Is like they're totally ignoring all the crime and everything. They don't really care about what's going on.
Well, I think what happened there. This is the string of events that, as I see it, to describe exactly the reason. The reason what you're describing is in 2001. 3 events happened in 2001. Obviously, there was the bringing down the buildings, which happened to me happened to just be coincidence for other 2 events that were taking place that year. And the one was the UCC enacting of UCC 9, and the second one was the OCC, the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, coming in and basically with deregulation and preemption. And what that was they took away all our freedoms and they gave them over to the business of banking. So all fiduciary duty was cut off at that point in time. So all these 3 things. Well, and when the buildings came down, where did our attention go? Our attention went over to Afghanistan and overseas, and to me, that's the point that the domestic terrorism door was open to all the bankers that came in, because they had this time while we were focused over there, and our eyes and attention was overseas. They were integrating this system to fix the system, and that's exactly what they've done. So they give an award system to these SWAT team members and pension bumps to CPS workers. So they made it a perk to either come after us and arrest us or to do nothing.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, the thing is, we were supposed to be more safer after 2001, weren't we? But we're less safer, right. And we're under threat by every agency and anything that is sold to us as well.
And I think that was because of the OCC. Because by cutting off the fiduciary duty, nobody has any duty to us anymore. We were left on our own without even being told that, hey, guess what? We're integrating a new economy here, a new way of doing things. We're going to start trading your name instead of the old banking way. Nobody told us any of this stuff, so we were basically sitting ducks.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I tell people is in January of 2009, a whole bunch of alternative practitioners in the state of Nevada, and we have a law. We're the only state that has a law. It was founded by Mormons in 1919 for frontier medicine. So, I mean, you can't do like full on like boob jobs. I mean, there's things you're not going to be able to do under that kind of a bill. But alternative medicine where you're doing no harm or whatever else fits underneath that. And so in 2009, the state and the government decided to come after us in Nevada, evicted like right out the gate in 2008 when the bill hadn't even been heard at the legislature yet, right? The Complementary Medicine Act that would get rid of even 1,500 supplement stores would have been like a felony to have vitamin C. Anyway, I was one of the people that got attacked, cease and desist, threatened. They even went to my office landlady. They threatened her. She asked me to leave my office in 24 hours. I mean, it was like, and then after that, because I decided to fight. But this is the deal, is nobody goes to the legislature in their local states or even goes to look at what kind of bills that they're presenting. Right. And so I was like one of 8 citizen lobbyists. The other 7 were fighting since 1974 against, trying to do the best that they can to like at least fight off the very best. Every 2 years in Nevada, we have 1,500 bills that come through. You know how much that is for 8 people to look through and try to figure out what we need to defend and what we don't. And you're up against 890 paid lobbyists, and they're all like sharks, and they all dress the same. It's like they know what day of the month to color code their suits. No, so they know that you don't belong there as a citizen, and so they're always like extra snarky, and they do secretive stuff there too. But we've allowed a lot of this stuff, happen. Well,
that's the same thing. I've got a friend here in Oregon who's in the legislative. Sure, I'll spit it out. And he said to me, he goes, there's nothing we can do. I mean, we're overrun by these lobbyists. and they're just having their way. And it's because we're not down there. We're not partaking in government anymore. We let it go. And because we've done that, the states have basically modeled whatever they want to, and it's all modeled on these lobbyists and their special interests, and they're getting what they want.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It was a major fight. And then I ended up fighting against 50 bills total. But it was a lot of work, 100 hours a week, and you can't make money. It's not a paid job to be able to go there and try to defend stuff for people. And I would get tons of hate mail. I was profiled by law enforcement. It was. I had to go into hiding to sleep on someone's couch in order to do
terrible.
it. I had to drive different cars to the legislature, because I was on a hit list, because I was like a pit bull with lipstick, because I was like, you're not gonna take away my alternative practice. You're not gonna damage my livelihood. In the end, they did, but they didn't get that bill through.
Well, and we've got a society that's so deceived by bullshit. I mean, by everything. I mean, everything is literally opposite the way of what it should be. And it's sad, because here we are 20 years down the road from this big change that I was talking about, and it's just gotten so it's terrible. I mean, we've got a society that is not in touch with anything to even care about anything, and that's scary. That's a scary situation. But thankfully, these things are starting to finally come to light. And but did you see there's a big ruling over, and that'll change the subject, but a big ruling over in England that finally says that they're going to start holding these bankers accountable for fraudulent mortgages, which is about time.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Well, I mean, what was in Iceland? Iceland, when they came in and changed their stock market and they did all that stuff, and then people started losing. Wasn't it Iceland? They lost all their homes, and then Iceland, I think it was, or Finland or something like that. They put a stop to it.
I think it was Iceland.
And then they arrested them all, and they put them in jail, all the bankers, even the ones from the U.S. that were involved. And then I think they gave back where they could houses back to the people.
Well, what needs to happen here is we need to start holding these attorneys. People blame the government a lot, the federal government. In my opinion, from my research, and I've been doing this for 10 years, and I've been doing it, and there's no pay in it either, just like you were saying. I mean, this is a lot of time you have to put in on stuff like this. And but I found that this whole thing is just fixed down the line. And to prove, it's not that the government, we're not the smartest people in the room. It was the attorneys. And you see nowadays, where if you ask any questions or anything, what happens? The standard response you get is, well, that's a legal question. You've got to ask an attorney. Or if you're in government, what's the first thing that happens if you send documents in? They're going to send it where? To the legal department. So you got these lawyers that are manipulating everything, and government that is just not partaking. That's my opinion.
Yeah, well, I think it's just such a cluster F that nobody really knows what the hell's going on unless you start, traveling down the road and taking a look, because everything is like so disconnected, and these people don't do that, and these people don't do this, nobody knows exactly, really what's going on. And, this is the sad part, especially about the housing. In Reno, we're dealing with, I've been kind of living out of my car for several years myself, so that I can focus kind of on the work that I want to do. But our homeless population, so 2 years ago, I got involved with Food Not Bombs Reno, and we started feeding the homeless people living on the river. I mean, they're defecating in the public water, urinating. There's nothing they can do. I mean, where the heck do you want these people to go? And then last April, the New York Times came out and, said that... Have
you noticed a big influx of more? A great deal more?
Oh, it's falling apart here. Well, here, when we had the mortgage crisis in 2008, it was bad here, because almost all jobs here are service industry or warehousing. So when that market hit and we had less tourism coming in, which is like pretty much what the whole state is based on, plus, nobody pays taxes here because corporation doesn't pay tax here. So we're like 47th on the list, down at the bottom that collect any kind of taxes. And so it's had a massive effect on the area. They closed they laid off 2,500 teachers across the state that they never hired back. And so now you have education that got to take the hit, and the housing. And so we have the largest, it turns out, since last April, we have the largest housing or homeless population in the nation per capita.
Really?
I think
Wow.
he's like 425,000 people. We have so many homeless here. It is like it's shocking, and nobody is doing anything about it. Nobody's even like looking at it. So.
And isn't it amazing? You probably got all those vacant houses out there that are just sitting there rotting.
Yeah. No. Well, I mean, like somebody was telling me in Washoe County alone. Because when the banks, started swallowing back up all those houses and those properties, they decided to sit on them. And so a lot of them they've just been sitting on and not putting on the market to sell because they're trying to force the market back up. And they were saying like this was like 8 years ago, like 5,000 houses that have been foreclosed on were being held by banks in the Washoe County area. It's probably a lot more now.
Yeah, they're sitting on them for the tax benefits of it, and the condemnation proceeds is why they're sitting on them.
Yeah, and they don't take care of them. They don't do anything, and so you're just.
Well, there's some cases where the people have been thrown from their houses, and they've gotten hit with maintenance upkeeps on the property. It's like, you got to be kidding! You threw me out of my house. I'm supposed to keep upkeep it. Are you kidding?
I know. No, that's the thing, and so it's I mean, the whole housing. We have no low-income housing here. I mean, for a studio apartment, for, sort of okay neighborhood, you're looking at like $800 a month. And there's no jobs. We don't have technology. We don't have any big jobs. We have Tesla, Elon Musk, who just built a plant for the batteries, outside of Reno. But he's had to hire from all these places because Nevada ranks 50th in the nation as far as education. So we don't even have people that can actually do the job, the jobs that might come in. I mean, and so then, the people are just they've actually gone and they started, bulldozing all of the, weekly motels in the area. I mean, we had prolific.
Oh, wow. So putting more people homeless.
Yeah, and they're mostly older. A lot of older people have been living in those hotels, it turns out, because that's the only place they can afford.
Isn't that despicable? I mean, isn't that despicable? What we're doing to the elderly? It's unbelievable.
And the veterans. I mean, most of them, a lot of these people are elderly and veterans. And, it's like disintegrating so rapidly and nobody knows it. And then you have a lot of the illegal immigrants that are coming in and bad things are happening to them because they end up homeless and stuff on the streets as well because they thought America was in better shape than it was.
No, this country was taken over by a coup d'état. It was a coup d'état that was the crashing of the economy. I mean, I can show and prove that this was a setup and it was intentionally collapsed. And the reason for it is because there's so much more behind this than a mortgage loan. This is all about a state, and this is about all of the investments that are spurring off of that all caps name that they're making billions on. I mean, trillions on. And to see that these people that are homeless and to see all these problems that we're having, it really is despicable that we can't pin down and find the area where to focus at. And I think I found that area. Actually, I know I found that area. And we have to do something to get people to become educated on what's really going on here, and that there's value in a person's name. And there really is value. There's a lot of value in a person's name. And that's what they're after. And by controlling that name, obviously they have the control, but they also have to take the value of that name as well. And what are they doing with it? They're taking it overseas, and they're taking it down to the Cayman Islands. So they're basically taking our public personality and they're private. So there's trillions of dollars that is not accountable for, that is attached to our names. And in return, what do we get? We get this world that we look at right now.
Well, yeah.
Homelessness. And it's crazy.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, okay, so now that I deal with a lot of the homeless people, going out, and I try to get clothing and whatever else to help them, and but it's Atlas Shrugs. And it's so funny because I talk to friends of mine,
exactly.
And they're like, "Oh, it's not Atlas Shrugs yet." And I'm like, "Dude, you're not looking in the right places. You're not paying attention." I mean, Skid Row right now has like 50,000 people in it, and there are medieval diseases that are breaking out, and even the government workers, because it's around, the older government buildings downtown, they're getting things like typhus, which is a really horrible, comes with fever and sores, like the worst kind of fevers. A lot of people die from it, and it's carried by the fleas. And because there's so much urine and human
defecation and
garbage, and nobody's helping these people. They don't care that now we're in like a major pandemic health crisis. I mean, anything could have a breakout, and the public water is being contaminated, and it's not their fault.
No, it's not their fault at all. No, they're a victim of circumstance, and the circumstance that they've been put into, and we all are. We all are. We damn well better start waking up to it and start realizing that, hey, we've got a problem here. But how do you do that when you got the population that is looking elsewhere, in the opposite direction from where they should be looking? That's the problem. It's you got to get the population to become educated and actually take notice of these things, and they don't care.
Well, that's why. That's why, we do what we do. We make sure everything that we're doing goes public. That's the only way. And the thing is, like you, I got involved in this because the state and feds came after my healthcare practice, and I was busy. I was successful. I was vacationing. I was rock climbing. I was doing a lot of things I do, living a really healthy lifestyle, not always conscious, but when they took that from me, I didn't have a choice but to try to fight and figure out what was going on. And I'm still like, my life is extremely damaged by what they have done in the past,
I agree. I mean, my event happened in 2001, right after the OCC enacted deregulation. U.S. Bank came after us and tried to trap us into there wasn't a trap. It was actually a refinance and then take advantage of lower interest rates. And what it was a scheme to try to destroy our credit so that they can come in and steal the property. And that was the beginning of all this stuff. And I was always of the opinion, well, wait a second here. If I have freedom, and freedom it means that I'm responsible for my own life. So in other words, I reap the rewards of my good decisions, and I pay the consequences for poor decisions. But what about the idiot that comes in and that it's not connected to me, and I have nothing to do with it, that ruins my credit? Where there should be a system of law in place to fix that. Well, they took that all away in 2001, and I thought, wait a second here, something's wrong here. My freedoms are gone, and that I've still never recovered from that. It just compounded time over again, and this is what's happened to everybody. They took away, what was taken away was any kind of fiduciary duty to us, and there's no recourse anywhere, none. And that's the problem. These guys, nobody's holding these people's these attorneys' feet to the fire. And the place that I found, and the things that I found, is the place to hold these guys' feet to the fire is in patents and trademarks. And saying, wait a second here, you tell me where it is legal to do all these things, to do all these illegal, unlawful acts where they break every single law you could possibly imagine within these patents, and then come out and put a public smile on your face and say that you're a legal professional coming after somebody to throw them out of their house, or coming after somebody on medical, or coming after you, and for instance. Where's there legal in any of that? There is no legal. I mean, legal is there's no law. It's all arbitrary, and you can show all this in patents. It's prima facie. There's no law. It's all based on capricious whim and business models that are beneficial to the to the bankers and the attorneys.
Yeah.
That's who's running this country.
Yeah, the other thing too is like they don't even so maybe before 2001. That they had to, sign their own documents because they had to bear the proof of burden for whatever they were doing, right? Nowadays, they don't do it at all. Like when they came after me and the fake cease and desist, like I took it to a common law retired judge friend of mine, and he said, where's the judge's signature? And I said, oh, I don't know that a cease and desist has to have a judicial signature. He goes, it does. He goes, this is fake. They're giving you all fake cease and desist. And there's nobody signing on them being responsible for this crime, And then I know down in Florida too, they're like a lot of the cops are arresting people and then throwing them in jail for like a year and a half over like a light missing on the license plate.
Oh my gosh.
And then they sell their vehicles. They actually arrest them, and then they impound their vehicles, and then they sell their vehicles in 30 days while they're in solitary confinement. And there's no arrest. There may be a cop that did the arrest, but they're not liable anymore to sign the documents or the arrest warrants or the paperwork.
Right, yeah, and see, that all goes back to the OCC deregulation. They took away our freedoms, and they took away all fiduciary duties. So nobody's got a fiduciary duty to anybody anymore, and we've been made the enemy. And these cops and court officials and judges, they've all been put in the revenue stream. And so all they see is they're enamored by, oh gee, I mean, they got a pension perk, or I get some kind of monetary award. I mean, think about it. I mean, these county employees, these government workers don't make much money, so when they see that, they're like, oh, I'll jump on that. Nobody's thinking. I mean, to me, I cannot possibly get into the mind of a person, of a SWAT team member bursting into somebody's house at 3:00 in the morning to drag out a woman, mid-30s, mid-40s, whatever, with a couple of kids. I can't possibly fathom what in your mind made you think that was okay to do.
Exactly. Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, we basically have become ATM machines. And I think that they're getting more and more aggressive towards us because less of us are committing crimes. Like, everybody's terrified. Like, they don't want to drive their car. They drive the speed limit. You know what I mean? Like, you do everything. And periodically I'll see new things go up. Like a couple years ago, they decided to not allow right turns, like free right turns anymore.
Oh, really?
And they actually put up signs, and before anybody knew it, we were all getting pulled over because we were used to just doing free right turns. And I got so mad, this cop pulled me over and gave me a $400 ticket for it. And I'm like, there's no sign. That's not a law. And he's like, there is. He goes, go back and look. And I did. And it must have just been posted like the day before. And I ran that, I did the free right turn, and he pulled me over because I ran the red light. So I got a $400 ticket. But the thing is like, I know. And so what they have to do is they have total domination.
That's just total domination.
But they have to get more and more aggressive because less and less people are committing any kind of crimes. They're not going out of their houses. They're not speeding, like I said. They're, you know what I mean? They're just really trying to keep their head down. And so since people aren't committing crimes, they're not making enough money for the system. So they have to get more and more aggressive towards people and lie and create, things that they've done so that they can, pull bonds and life insurance policies on these people so they can get paid. So false.
Yeah, and they're reaping all the perks of these things. And the sad thing about it is that these are enacted within the codes and statutes. Or even more sad of a thing is that the codes and statutes that are in place are not even being applied as they are, as they should be, because there's all these underground paths that they're using to nail people and to come after people. It's crazy. And what are you going to do with it? Like you said, what did you do with the $400 ticket? Did you pay it? Yeah,
I did because it was before that I really, really got involved with like just different types of law, because I didn't really understand. Now, basically I would sign differently on the document if they tried to force it on me. And then I would fight it from that point, and I would send them a lot of paperwork to stop it and basically toss me out before the court hearing, because I wouldn't pay it. I would go to the court hearing, and I'd want to have a trial, and I would press for that, and then I would send in paperwork, showing them of their fraud, and they're not going to want me in their court. They're going to be like, no, we'll just get rid of this. Have a nice day. But still, the fact is, you have to spend all the time doing that or trying to figure out how I'm going to counter if this situation happens and how I'm going to, manage it and handle it.
That's a major amount of time to put into something like that. I mean,
and the trauma of these trespasses, by these different organizations and agencies, and the aggression towards you, like, there are things that happened to me when I went through the whole attack, the threats, of being pulled over all the time, and having police sit in front of the house I was living at every night. You know what I mean? All of it. I got to where I was so terrified. I literally, when I was headed to the legislature, I would literally get up in the morning, vomit because of the stress, and then prepare myself to be strong and how I was going to get to the legislature. And I knew I was going to get pulled over. So how was I going to handle that? And just getting to the legislature was like, like a major obstacle course, like in hell with the devil.
Well, we're all suffering from PTSD from this stuff.
I have total PTSD from it.
I mean, we all are, because, I mean, what you're describing there is yeah, I mean, it's horrible stuff that's going on.
Well, this is the other thing, too, is like what happened to me was bad, but it's not as bad as somebody that goes into the military and has to go to war for these people. Like, there's a lot of post-traumatic stress disorder that I'm not going to be able to heal from what happened to me. And I started
or worse yet, you come back and you find that you got nothing available to you.
Yeah, I mean, I get now that no person should ever be sent into war for any reason, shape, or form.
No, I agree.
They will never, ever be able to heal from that ever. And if they're going to use them that way, and these people are going to allow themselves to be used, they deserve to have, a free place to live when they return home. They deserve to have best
free
quality
services and everything. I mean, the best of everything. But they don't get that.
They should have the best of everything, hands down. If you're
I mean, there are so many different federal vet programs to care for these guys, but nobody. First of all, nobody knows about them. Second of all, nobody can get access to them because the attorneys are taking all the monies available there. They're the ones that are taking everything. They're creating nonprofits and if anybody says a nonprofit doesn't bring in a lot of money, bull. Nonprofits, that's a windfall that's being brought in, and so all the services. I know a gal down in California who was married to an attorney, big shot attorney, and had to tell me about this law firm and how this law firm is setting up these nonprofits so that they can open up social services for like the homeless and whatnot. And she goes, all they're doing is they're moving people through a line, taking their names so that they can form other nonprofits. They're not doing anything for them.
Well,
they're not doing anything. All
this
they're
is
doing
the deal.
cataloging them.
I think it was like I think it was during Bush Jr. He signed like this what do they call it? A subsidy for churches, and churches that are going to want to hand out food and stuff like that and supposedly help people. They were going to be part of like $8 billion. So churches now get, and some of these, nonprofit church-like organizations, they get part of like $8 billion a year that they can apply for. So they get this free food that's given to them from the state that they hand out, but the person has to give them an ID. So that means the people that live on the bridge, live under the bridge, they don't have ID.
They don't have an ID.
They don't have access to food that they're supposed to be having access to. So it goes back to your name, and that you have to have an ID. You have to have a corporation ID. You have to prove your corporate, identity, so that you can go in and just get food. Like the whole thing is like so unbelievably like crazy.
And what is that? What is that all caps name? It's not supposed to be an enslavement name. That is a corporation. You're right. That's a private corporation that's supposed to be ours. That's for our benefit. But because it's been hijacked, and it's because everybody's flipped it around to make it look like it's a debtor, nobody knows how to use these things. So they're using them. So they're taking it. I mean, that is that birth certificate, for instance. Go back to that birth certificate. That's a private corporation that made us a stakeholder in the United States. It doesn't make us a debtor, but it's been flipped around that way, and that's how they've applied it.
Well, once the government made themselves the trustee of it, then they decided that they would control it and use it for whatever they needed to control it for.
Right, and then what's happened here in the past 20 years is they've taken that corporation name, that private name, that's our name, and they took it into their private. So what's happened? The deficit has skyrocketed. We're shown on public records as just being deadbeats, liars, and cheats, while they're basking the trillions of dollars or trillions of credits that they've taken overseas.
Yeah,
and
so this is the thing.
Then they bring it back. They repatriate it back into the country by forming what? Foundations and nonprofits. It's crazy.
So so you're dealing with everything. So there's three USAs, and then there's the public and the private. And so you have private banking and public banking. You have private medical and public medicine. You have, all these things. And so the people who get to be in the private sector, and they never pay anything, and they do whatever they want. And it is the public that pays for everything. And we have been conned into paying for everything, our insurance and all this other stuff.
Right.
You know,
now here's what I found out through my research.
Yeah. Can you hold that thought, because we're going to be coming into commercial here pretty quick. And you can also, so I'm just going to say, you can find Ken Dost. Where can we find you? On Facebook? And do you have a website?
You can find me on Facebook at Ken Dost, D-O-S-T, or you can find me on Facebook at mortgage =, copyright derivative, or the blog Dost Affixtications.
Okay, so anyway, so we're coming into a commercial here at Fort Till, and I'm Bridget Lynn Dolgoff. I'm the host of Carrying Stones and Digging Holes, and this is the end of the first hour. We're going to go to commercial for 4 minutes, and then we're going to come back for the second hour, and we're going to continue the conversation with Ken Dost. All right, everybody mute. 4-minute commercial.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Hello, all you good-looking people out there in Revolution Radio. This is Mario. I invite you to join me Thursdays at 6 o'clock for This, That, and the Other. It's a show about you, it's a show about me, but ultimately it's a show where we try to have a little bit of fun. We discuss important topics, and we do our best to be apolitical. So I invite you, put on your favorite pair of comfy sweats, your smoking jacket, and grab a beverage of your choice, and join me Thursday evenings at 6 o'clock for This, That, and the Other on Revolution Radio.
Enter into a world unseen on Raven Star's Witching Hour. You will encounter eclectic topics from the realm of spirit brought into our matrix of truth. With your host, the Solaris Blue Raven. Solaris will bring you an array of unique guests covering topics from ghostly spirits to amazing anomalies, covert technology, UFOs, and shadowy global events.
And that's right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, Saturdays midnight till 2 a.m. Eastern Time. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Let the magic rise.
From the astral realms to the physical plane, the halls of power to the walls of home, the multiverse to the innerverse, all will be haunted by the ghost in the machine. I am Steve Zerloff, the ghost in the machine. Mondays, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Studio B, exclusively here on Revolution.Radio.
It happens more often than we can imagine. In my case, I was sitting at home, and out of nowhere, I just started feeling uncomfortable. Then it got worse, and I started perspiring. I tried to ignore it, but I waited too long. The chest pain came as we were driving to the hospital emergency. I felt my life clock begin to tick. I barely survived. There was lots of damage done to my heart. What do I do now? I was lucky. I took a leap of faith and tried a 7-herb formula with hawthorn, garlic, cayenne, and more called Extendivite. Herbs have been used for thousands of years to keep us healthy. If you're not using Extendivite as a preventative supplement, maybe it's time to start. To order, call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and FreedomSlips.com, its staff,
Bridget Lynn Dolgoff. That would be me.
You're listening to Revolution Radio,
You
FreedomSlips.com.
can go to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com,
and now we return
and
you
can,
your host.
if you look on the left-hand side, you will see schedule. And if you click on that, it'll give you a choice between A and B. You can go to A, click on that, and then you can... Ooh, almost there. Okay, I think that's it. Okay. All right, so back to, this is Carrying Stones and Digging Holes by Bridget Lynn Dolgoff. I'm your host. Today we're on the second hour now. You can find my show at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Studio A on Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. It's the bee flying towards the flower. If you click on that picture, you can see a bio and information about the show and contact information. And we are continuing on the second hour. We are continuing on with the second hour of with Ken Dost, and we're talking about all kinds of different things that apply to what's happened in the recent past and why the events are happening, and administrative law, copyright law, MERS. So we're discussing that. So are you still there, Ken?
I am.
Okay, you finished with a topic and you're going to hold that thought. So go ahead.
Well, what I'm doing, I've been doing this for 10 years, and I've gone through it, and I came into this. I was like you before all this started. Well, maybe I wasn't. I don't know. I don't know exactly what your thoughts prior to this were, your beliefs prior to the events that happened to you that changed your life. But to me, before 2001, I was living life. I was living life as I thought I was. So when I came into this, when these events happened that brought me into this, I kind of came in as a virgin insofar as I didn't really have any political views. I just was, just everyday Joe. And so when I came into this and started researching this without any kind of bias or any kind of preconceived notions or anything. So I kind of let my past, my architectural past, and things I knew in architecture to kind of guide my path on uncovering these things. And that path led to patents and trademarks. So I've been doing this for about 10 years, and I've gone through all these things and researched these things and have determined that the way out of this stuff is through patents and trademarks. And the things that I'm doing right now to exercise those to get that freedom, so to speak, is in trademarks. And it all does have to do with the name. And everything. I think we've already confirmed that in the first hour. I think we've confirmed definitely that this is all name-driven and in control of name, right? I mean, we'll agree on that.
Yeah. Well, it's identity-driven, right? Your identity.
Identity-driven, yes, identity-driven.
And
so what they've done is they've taken our name and our signature and they lifted that and they stole that and they're using it in the same way that Gloria Vanderbilt or Kenneth Cole or Anne Klein uses their signature and their block letters in their own business. And they're doing the same. They've applied the same thing to us. So what they've done is they've taken they've lifted and stolen our signature, and because they have the powers of attorney that they stole to do so, they're rubber stamping us to everything in these pools, investments, pools of trademark goods, whether it be Goldman Sachs or some kind of a medical facility or medical research or DNA research or whatever it is. And so that's where they're putting our names, our stolen identity into these things. And the one thing that's interesting about these names is that you're required to sign a statement saying that I'm the living person or living individual, and I've given my consent to use my signature or my block letter name as a trademark trade name. And all these people, Gloria Vanderbilt, Anne Klein, all these people that have signatories as their business name have had to do the same thing. There was one person that tried to pull a trademark for Hillary. There was a phrase, "Hillary Clinton lives," and the trademark board turned it down because unless the person that was applying for that trademark got a signed consent statement from Hillary Clinton saying that I, Hillary Clinton, a living individual, give my permission that my name be used in a trademark good in commerce, that they were not going to pass it. They weren't going to give it a registration, so it failed. So what I'm seeing here and what I've determined is that what we have to do is we have to file a statement with the Commissioner of Trademarks saying that I, Kenneth W. Dost, natural person, did not give permission that my name, block letter name, all capitals name, or signature be used in commerce, and I demand that it be retracted. And it could be as simple as that, actually, because at that point in time, what you're doing is you're making a correction, coming forward and saying, "Hey, I'm a living individual here, and you've taken my name, the representation of my name, and you're using it in commerce, and I never gave you that permission." And believe it or not, that's what's driving all this stuff.
I agree. I 100% agree. Yeah, and the other thing too is like we're the battery, we're the depository,
That's right. We're everything.
Our identity is the deposits. It's the way that they we're the depositor. We're also the bill payer.
Plant.
Yeah,
we're the energy plant.
Yep. And they turn it into ones and zeros, and they move it all over the place.
That's right. They move it all over the place, and they do it underhandedly. Now, that's what takes us into the private. Like for MERS, for instance, what they did there by hiding that concealed agreement between MERS and Nations Bank, they were able to lift our signature and lift our identity and do this underneath behind the false disguise of compliance, and take us into the private world of trademarks and patents. And it's like a pipeline that just takes us into this quantum universe of whatever. It's an orgy of bankers and attorneys and just making all these rules and doing whatever they want with us and manipulating whatever they want with us, and then coming forward in the public and applying it to us as if they're applying codes and statutes. They're violating their own legal codes and statutes, for God's sakes. So it's not only is it illegal, it's unlawful and it's immoral what's taking place. And by doing everything we're doing, we're trying to fight this stuff. We can't fight this stuff head on. There's no way we can fight it in the court because it says so within these trademark agreements, and these trademark agreements are really the agreements that says, and this is from now if you can think of trademarks as a collective membership, as that we're all part of this collective membership in this big, huge pool, and that what they're doing is they're constantly re-scooping and scooping our name up time and time again to fund government, to build roads, to do all these things, right? So we are, and within these agreements, it's admitted that we are the secured party. We're the secured party, but we're not recognizing that we've got deferred compensation out there. There's labor of our form, and that's the labor of our all caps name, the labor of our energy that is building in compensation. And this is provable by Encode with the Department of Labor. And so all those deferred compensations, who's picking those things up? The attorneys are picking them up because they're diverting all our mail to them. So all the dividends that we should be getting, all the stock returns, all of the perks, all the benefits, all the credits that should be coming to us have all been diverted to the attorneys, and they have all the power in this. And then what have they done? This is all in the private. So now on the public side, they've got us labeled as debtors and deadbeats and liars and cheats, and because of the patents and because of what they've been able to do with the manipulation of the codes and statutes, they've turned us as the enemy now. I mean, and it all stems, everything we talk about today stems from patents and trademarks, everything.
Well, one thing I've learned, from all the stuff that I've been involved in is that to not get in contract, because that's the only way that at this point in time, that I know how to not engage them so that they can continue to make money, or that
Right.
they can overpower me and trespass and make decisions for me.
Well, here's my take on that. My take on that is when you can stand in trademarks and patents and you can say that, hey, you know what? There's no law here. There's no law whatsoever. This is all based on make believe, capricious whim and contrivance. There's no law here, and I know that now. I could see that. I can look around. I could stand here and I could look around in the Hall of Patents and think and say to you, Commissioner, and Department of Undersecretary of Commerce, I could say to you that this is a bunch of BS. This is bull. There is no law. This is all make-believe stuff that if I walk out of the room of patents and I'm into the so-called real world, I'm being hit with codes and statutes that are just being used as business models for these attorneys in the business of banking. There is no law, so therefore you've got to protect me. I got to become a private citizen, and I've got to be protected from these people. And that's the view I'm taking. That's the way that I'm going with this. The path that I'm going with this, and when I make this correction within trademarks and patents as well, I'm donating the whole thing. I'm gifting it to Treasury and then entering into an agreement with Treasury so that I have a credit account with them, because it's at the end of the day it's want for nothing and have everything, because by the time they do the accounting and the auditing of all these accounts that have been stolen and have been created that have never been accounted for as far as taxes are concerned, what I'm doing is I'm cutting the strings that they have on me and basically turning them over to Treasury. And now it's Treasury's job to audit them, and it's Treasury's job to go after the debts that owe the United States of America. Fine, go after these attorneys now. Go after them for tax evasion, so that's where I'm headed with this thing. And I think that's the solution. And for people to say, oh, they're never going to do that, they don't have a choice but to do that, because what you've shown is you've shown a major treason, and if they do not perform for you, then they're committing a treason. And the way that I'm going about this, I'm doing this as a correction. I'm saying, hey, I discovered an error here. And this is what the error is. It has to do with my name. And I need you to correct it. And by them making that correction, because we're in this automated system, it should spur, it's like pushing that first domino. It should affect everything else and clear up everything else.
Yeah, no. I'm always
that's a big mouthful I just said.
No, it's super great. The one thing I think about is, thank God that there are so many people. I mean, like the 100th monkey thing, right? So everybody's kind of whatever has gone wrong in their life, and they've woken up and they've, started to pursue trying to figure it out and then trying to get solutions. There are a lot more now, but you think about I always sometimes talk to people about the Montana Freemasons, and only one, got out of jail. But in the United States, they were I think 10 of them. And they were the first ones that really started, butting heads with the government and the states about this corporate identity. And what happened back then was that since they were kind of an anomaly group, they arrested them all. They put them in jail for 27 years. Nobody even really knew about them or where they were at. They removed their kidney and sold it on the black market. They blinded them all. And I think in the end, only one got out. But, he came here to the Reno area when he got out, and then a lot of people helped him, and I have no idea where he's at now. But the thing is there's more of us now, you know what I mean? And and we're educating ourselves. I mean, and so we're at a 100th monkey effect where, if we keep going, we are going to overturn, the system,
I think so too. I think the big mistake that we're making, though, is we're attacking the federal government, but we're giving them more credit than they probably deserve. Like I said earlier, the federal government, I mean, I'm pretty well convinced, I pretty much know for certain from the documents I've already put in, that the government is really, they don't have a clue what's going on. They were not the smartest guy in the room. They don't know of all this deception that's going on and how bad it is. They have no clue because they hand everything off to the attorneys. So, what happens? You hand everything off to the attorneys, and the attorneys have, of course, fixed everything. They fixed the codes and a law within the patents. As a matter of fact, anytime a law gets passed, the bankers and attorneys come in, they find a way around it. I'll give you a perfect example. For title examiners, there's a capped fee, right, on the amount that title examiners can make on these real estate transactions. Well, first, I think it was First American Title, did a 4-page patent, a very simple patent that recognized the fact that said, hey, we're making tons of money here, but we got a problem here because we got this title examiner that's capped. So what we're going to do is we're just going to create a little patent here. We're going to create something called a layer that's just going to be available just for that title examiner, just to show that we can that we meet the regulation of meeting the cap. I mean, it's illegal as hell. But these are the things that they're doing. So anything that is in code, they're finding their way around, and they're engineering their way around it with a patent. And these are the things that we got to recognize, so that the government is by and large blind to all this stuff. This is an economy and a world, I sadly sad to say, that is run by the bar attorneys and the business of banking.
And the thing, so this is kind of a funny story. So back in the day, when Burning Man really kind of started becoming like a movement here in Reno, because we have the Black Rock Desert, there was a guy.
I would love to come to that.
Well, that's a
whole
other story. But anyway, so I was going to school, and I had part-time jobs kind of in the system. And this, I think this was the last bartending job. But anyway, I got a job at this bar called the Blue Lamp, and the guy who created it came up from San Francisco, out of the Mission area. He'd had bars down there. So during the day, when I opened the bar from like 2 to 8, I had all the attorneys, because it was close to Court Street. So all the attorneys loved me. They would come in and they would drink at my bar. The whole bar was full of attorneys and judges and everybody else. And then at night it got seedy. After 8 o'clock, the bar got really, really seedy, had bands, and, had a lot of the really, harsh undercurrent kind of society stuff. So, but I would hear them talk about the craziest stuff sitting on my bar. They always tipped well, but they would have like these crazy powwows where one time one of the smarter, probably one of the, I forget what his name was, but one of the smartest attorneys probably ever in Reno, he got this client from, I don't know, Somalia or someplace like that. And what had happened was they seized somebody's ship that had, all kinds of stuff on board, and the pirates and the country, decided that they weren't going to at least allow the guy or the company from the U.S. to go down and get the ship because it was in their waters. They now owned it. So this guy was like trying to figure out a way to outsmart, basically international waters laws. What kind of country could they look at? And this guy went back to like the late 1800s, and was looking through all these different countries' laws and all this other stuff. And it turned out that there's like this weird, thing under some of one of the older laws that deal with international waters and commerce, that if the person that owned the boat could get onto the boat, even if it was in other waters, and it had its own, it manned its own boat and got it out of those waters, that could happen. So they were like they were actually trying to figure out how to get this corporate executive guy who owned this company to onto that boat, and what kind of black ops they were going to hire, all these like security teams, and they were going to have to sneak in with these other boats, and then get everybody on. But once they got it on, then they could fix it and get it out of those.
Right. They seized navigation of it.
Yeah. So, but it was actually, this guy was, like got paid to actually try to figure out what the only, what the resolution would be. And that was the only resolution. And it took them all, there was about 6 of them that sat at my bar that were like, oh, that sounds like fun, so we'll help you. We'll start looking through all the legal stuff, and we'll actually help you, to figure out how to help your client. Yeah, kind of a thing.
And that's exactly really what's going on with us. As far as you always say that we're lost at sea, and really it's a midsection of our body is our mid. I think it's from the hips up to the shoulders is considered a corporate body, but that corporate body is also considered the hull of a vessel. And what it's missing, when you hear the term "we're lost at sea," what's missing is that we haven't boarded the ship and taken navigation of it. So that's why we're lost. So it's odd how strange correlation in the story that you're telling. It's the same damn thing.
Yeah, and so the attorneys are really versed at this kind of stuff because a lot of them the smarter ones have to do international law. And how does that apply to ships?
The thing about this is because they've sliced us up into so many pieces, because of UCC9, they've been able to slice us up into 30-some slices, and actually more than that. They'll slice us up 30-some slices, and each one of those 30 slices will slice us up again. So there's so many, and they've investigated, they've patented every single possible scenario they can under even archaic laws to try to reach our property. So no matter what you do, in the case of foreclosure, if you happen to win your foreclosure or something, you haven't won it because somebody else is going to come at you from some different angle because that's the way that they've set this thing up. And it's crazy. I mean, I was bankrupted in England in 2012. I never even knew it. And this is what they're doing. They're shipping us because the Commonwealth is shipping us over.
How did you find that out? So what happened? That's an interesting story.
Just through all my research. I found that I have a company over in Turkey that's a textile company. I have residency in Luxembourg. I have part-time residency in Australia. I mean, this is not just for me. This is for all of us. This is what they've done to us. They've cut, and this is the problem with jurisdiction. There is no jurisdiction. How can there be jurisdiction when you slice me up in all these pieces and you send me off to four corners of the world?
Can you apply? Can you legally apply for a visa for your part-time? So they can go to Australia.
You can get. Yes, you can get. There's a whole series of passport visas that are electronic cards, like smart cards, that you can get, and that's what these bankers and attorneys have done, so that they can put us all over the world. Because it's not my living man, my living woman, or living woman that's the taxpayer here. It's the all caps name. It's that corporation name. And well, if you've sliced it up and put it to four corners of the world, then how the hell am I a United States taxpayer or a United States citizen? I've got more than dual citizenship. I've got quadruple, at least, citizenship in all these other countries. So where's their jurisdiction? There is none.
Right.
And so that's another point about going into. That's why I don't agree with this getting a state national passport. We don't want a state national passport because we got 50 states we're supposed to be 50 states under one nation, or one nation under 50 states under one nation. Well, we got 50 separate constitutions that are rigged to the hilt. And you've said it yourself when you were talking earlier about how hard it is to do anything through the state legislature. They're fixed, So, you've got, in the case of mortgage loans, they've taken us through that Merged Nations Bank Agreement, which with that agreement is drawn to the laws of the Commonwealth of the State of Virginia. Well, right there, that puts us in association under Vice Admiralty in association with the British Commonwealth. Then you've got foreclosing. When they foreclose upon you, they come after you. That's coming out of Delaware. When they go to clear the transactions and the exchanges through DTC, that's through the Borough of Manhattan. So you got all these different jurisdictions that are taking place. Well, how the hell can you be coming after me in Nevada or Oregon when you've got all this jurisdiction out there everywhere? It's scattered to four corners of the wind. And if you're gonna do that, then let's balance the books. Let's bring everything in. Let's take back the name and let's balance the books. And that's kind of what I'm doing with this stuff, because we've got to look at this in a realistic view of what they've done here, and it's horrendous what they've done here. And unfortunately, people are still trying to fight this stuff at a court level. And it's like I'm trying to talk to people and saying, listen, this is something different. This is something that you've never seen before because it's brand new. This is within the last 20 years that this stuff has happened. And what they've done is they've instituted a sophisticated system of trading practices and procedures that by Constitution they're supposed to disclose to us, and they haven't.
Yeah.
And,
well, this is the other thing too. Is like, you know, this is the basic bottom line that I tell people. And nowadays, you know, I have a really good friend of mine. He's like my dad, who is a retired common law judge. You know. And he studied with some pretty amazing people. He's not like mainstream. People don't know about him. He's not, you know, he's been on my show a few times, but we you know, have decided that we fight them on their own turf legally,
yes, you have
no
to.
matter what.
Yeah.
And
well, what do you mean by their own turf?
Well, like, for example, we don't submit, you know, common law paperwork to the Admiralty Court anymore because they're going to refute it because that's not part of their court. And, you know, they're a ship sailing, right? So they're like a pirate vessel. So you don't want to board that thing anyway. So we just do everything we can using their own, you know, laws, kind of not against them, but we point out that, excuse me, by your own law, you would be breaking this law. And so usually they, you know, send us a letter saying, okay, well, stay away from us and we'll stay away from you. And that's kind of like how we deal with it. Because we know that they're just a totally different legal system. So you can't really take one legal system and fight it in another legal system. It just doesn't work that way. And
the way I look at it is I'm going at where the attorneys can't reach me, and attorneys can't, because as I see it, you engage any of these guys in a courtroom situation or in a legal situation, you're going to lose because they've got it fixed for them. I mean, it does say within these trademarks, and there's one, I think, First American Title, it says the reason why we exist, our existence, is for the pleasures and profits of legal representatives of subsidiaries and affiliates.
Yeah. So this is the thing is,
engage them. It's in their field.
Right. And so
it's their playground.
This is how asinine it is. Like, you're going to hire an attorney to play in their field.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's craziness. So that's why I kind of just say, okay, I'm not going to play that game. I'm going to go right to the hub, and the root and the hub of this, where they can't stop me from getting in there and making a correction. And the beauty about it is that within, I think there's only a few agencies, immigration, DHS, patents and trademarks, that you can request that to represent yourself, that you as your own attorney. And I've determined the reason why that is because you've reached a position where you could face that attorney and say, you're full of shit. Pardon my French. There is no law. You guys are breaking the law like left and right. You guys are writing your own law.
Yeah, and one of the things, like, you know, we've done recently is we've decided, because we not mess around with paperwork, but we try different kinds of paperwork, but we're not mainstream. We don't do the regular kind of paperwork that other people are doing. We kind of have our own ideas and thoughts like you do. But one of the things that we did recently was, in the last 2 years, is we decided that we should write, you know, to go along with all the paperwork that we may use. 2 years ago, we created our own powers of attorney. We call them the special power of attorney, and it includes everything. And so whenever we send in whatever we're dealing with documents and stuff, we include that power of attorney, you know, because I'm, you know, not only am I the depositor, the trustee, the blah, 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 blah.
Everything.
But I'm also the power of attorney. And what happens is when I send in that document, because it's one thing to go into their court and like say, well, I, you know, because of the law, you know, I can represent myself. Well, no, because you haven't actually provided them any factual document that says, or even, you know, presumes that you'll be able to do that. So we did this power of attorney.
You got to get rid of that. You got to get rid of that personal representative that's standing next to you, which is that stupid attorney.
Yeah. So that now, whenever I submit anything, I let them know through power of attorney that I am the attorney also. I'm not only the trustee, but the depositor. I'm everything. And also, oh, by the way, I'm the power of attorney. So when they get that, they're like, well, we don't really know what she knows. You know what I mean? She's not in our.
I know exactly what you mean. I mean, that's the biggest thing that's driving this powers of attorney.
Yeah, how do we get rid of her? Because we don't really we just give her what she wants, you know, and let her go. But because they don't want it, they don't really know what I know, how I know it, and what's going to come out of my mouth if I'm in public, if I go to their court, because they don't want other people to hear that. And so they want to repel you, you know what I mean? And that's kind of like how I use it a lot is so that I'm I'm like the worst possible thing that monster can stick in its mouth. It's so untasty. It's disgusting that monster just spits it out right immediately.
And that's exactly the right attitude to have towards this. And I'm glad that you're finding that kind of success with that, because that's what needs to happen here. These attorneys are so arrogant; they think they're so unstoppable. And what you just described there is exactly what needs to stop them. Is they need to get that distaste in their mouth to say, I don't want to contend with this person. Let them go. I'm not going to play that. I'll forfeit my game on this one.
And this is the thing, in court you won't win. And you have to kind of do it behind the backdrop before you even get to court. If you are forced to have to go to court for any reason, you have to do it behind the backdrop. So that you're so unsavory, they just don't want you there.
Well, you're doing it in a private. You do it, and as it really should be, because these are things that are done. What was wound in the private has to be unwound in the private.
Yeah.
And these are all things that are backroom processes. So you got to unwind it that same way.
Yeah, because if you board that pirate ship, which is the judge's court, basically they can do whatever they want to you. They could murder you. Because
at that point in time, because you've given them full jurisdiction.
Yeah, the judge is the captain of that ship, and I tell people, like, back in the 1700s, when somebody was sailing, the Queen was paying for it, and they were sailing across the world. They didn't write back emails and say, so we have this legal problem with 4 people on our ship. They just gave them letters of document that said, as a captain of the ship, you can do whatever you want because that's your own state. And so,
do you know that
you can enslave them.
Do you know anytime a lawsuit's filed, do you know where it has to be filed with also? Is with the trademarks. So they can verify the name and verify whether that's a living person or not.
Yeah. And most people aren't because, they don't know.
Well, that's why I'm saying that's what I'm saying is that by making a filing to the trademarks, capturing that all caps name, saying, "Hey, that's me. I'm that person. I'm the living individual that belongs to that." You've stumped them. At that point in time, they got no case against you anymore. Because the only reason why they have a case against you is because they're coming after they're putting themselves between the all caps name, that essential union that binds body and soul together. They put themselves in between as an intermediary. And so we got to get rid of that intermediary, and that's all this stuff is. It's all these. It's one intermediary on top of another, on top of another, on top of another, which are all business models, right?
Right.
So the whole idea here is to kill all that stuff and get rid of all intermediaries.
So have you come along any kind of copyright laws that actually state? Is there any UCCs that you found that state that about the legal side of it?
It's trademark law. It's all trademark law. It's all under trademark law. It's all about deceptions with the names and how the names are used. They violated all these trademark laws, and by going in and showing that it's an error, which of course it's not, it's fraudulent, it's purposely done, but they call it an affected error. By going in and making that correction or making that statement, they're required to fix that. To me, this is the area where that we need to concentrate on, because everything is name-driven, as we know, and the trademarks deal directly with these things. And it's trademark law. It's different. It's a different body of law, obviously, than what we're dealing with now with foreclosures.
Well, yeah, and this is the thing. Yeah, this thing people don't know. Okay, so you've got like some common law, you've got natural law. You've got admiralty law, you've got administrative law, you've got corporation law, you've got copyright law. What else? And
then you got patent, and you got intellectual properties, which is patent and trademark law. And that's a totally different beast, because what you're dealing with there is you're dealing with the made up, with the imaginary, and that's exactly what it is.
Well, this is why. Yeah, so one of the things, so for people out there, so, if you've seen any of those YouTube things where attorneys or judges or cops or regular people are talking to you about, not talking to powers of authority because you could break 50,000 laws, this is why, because there's 7 active types of law that they use interchangeably. So, I forgot civil law, and then there's also
civil law.
And criminal law.
And you're right. So what do you do then? You take it down to
9 categories of law that they interchange and use against you, no matter what, even if it's at the banking level or it's at the criminal.
And the question, though, is where does it all stem from? Where does it all stem from? It stems from the mother of invention, which is patents, and the hub of commerce, which is trademarks. It's where it's all created. Everything, all this law, all banking. What do you think? Banking is just patents. That's all it is. It's just patents and trademarks. Everything stems out of those 2 areas. Everything. It's where it all begins, and that's where it all's got to end.
Yeah, but it all begins with the money. Show me the money.
It all begins with the idea. It all begins with the imagination of the idea, and because we're not aware of these things, and nobody's gotten there because of the OCC. There's no oversight. I mean, my first question is, who the heck has the authority to approve these banking patents? Where is the authority that's approving these bank patents? What is the qualifications? How are these things getting approved? And to be honest with you, there is none. There is no set formula really that is approving these things. So you got all these patents that are being approved left and right, which are getting worse and worse. We see that the way the society is getting more and more worse off. And it's funny. Nobody is putting the eyes on where this stuff originates from.
Exactly. And it's because people are they think it's a luxury in the United States to have things taken care of for them. So they, like a bank, they're like, oh yeah, but I tell them okay, well then you don't own anything in that bank. You may think you have a bank account, but you don't own any of it. And they're like, oh yeah, well I do. There's laws. And I'm like, okay, so somebody, the head manager that's put in control of that, physical bank, locks the door at 5:00. So you can't get in to get anything. You can't get your money. They can decide.
Technically speaking, though, you do own it all.
Right, but I'm just saying, I'm just talking about the slave part of it, right?
Slave part. But yeah, you own. Yeah, exactly.
They don't understand that they're locked out of it, that they have to wait around to a certain time, and that just shows the basic control. But Americans have this mindset that it's a luxury to have a bank account, that you can have your stuff in the bank account and you can have somebody take care of it. I mean, that's kind of like the mindset. Where
just like when you deposit a check and they hold it so that they can hit you with overdrafts. All the games that they play. These are all the control mechanisms that are in place.
This is how people can tell that it's getting worse. Almost every store now, like if you go into a Walmart, even if you have a receipt in your hand and you have the one object in your hand, they still have security at the door on the way out so that they can look at your receipt and look at what that you've bought, right? I mean, you can't even go in there to spend your own money and not be, it's even stores are becoming like concentration camps and surveillance. Costco. Mm-hmm. There was a guy who's in common law that realized, he doesn't go to Costco anymore with his wife because he got into a huge fight with the people there, because he said, look, I come in, to do commerce in your store as a member, with a card. And then you guys basically try to strip search me at the door, to get out. With my stuff that I purchased in your store. And, I don't think that people realize. People think, oh, well, that's to keep people from stealing stuff. No, it's to keep you in a system of control, and you used to showing your documents at every point. And you're showing your enslaved documents because those are the documents you have.
That's right. That's right, and the way that I look at it from patents and trademarks, and this is common law, is it not, that what a man puts in, he's entitled to get back out, and if he's not getting back out, what he put back in, he has a claim. And this is the same thing that's going on here. If people can grasp the idea, and I know this is hard to do, but if people can grasp the idea that your name has value to it, that you could sign your signature 5 times and throw it into the wind, and it's out there in the securitized markets, and who's profiting from that? Not you. They're profiting from it. So the question is, well, wait a second. If that's my name, why are they getting the profits from it? Why am I not getting the profits from it and the benefits of it? Because they stole the name. They took your pig. I want my pig back.
Yeah.
So it's not. So this goes into the spiritual realm to some degree, or into the abstract realm, shall we say? It goes into the abstract realm.
Well, I think it kind of goes into the. Are you still there? Did you get disconnected?
Yeah. No, I'm here.
Oh, okay. it goes back to the whole problem of how far away we are from natural law.
Yes.
And I know that's because a lot of my friends are native and spiritual, and I've studied with amazing, people. And the thing is like, okay, when we lived on our land, we had to be community, which means we have to get along.
Right.
Because if you steal things from the community or harm other people, you get kicked off, and or you get hung. Right? It's
Right.
bad enough, and you can't change your ways. Then extreme measures happen, but it happens from your community who
Right.
lay claim to this.
Now think about the village over. Now think about the next village over, and the way that I characterize the soul for description purposes. Think of that as your reputation. So the community over from you that is separate from you, that you trade with, they'll know Tom Smith or whomever. Oh yeah, I know that guy. He's a good guy, or he's a crook or whatever. So that's your reputation that precedes you. That's kind of the form that lives outside yourself.
Yeah. Well, when you live on your land under natural law, in old tribal societies, they use things for co-creation or reproduction. So the women were in charge for the medicine herbs, and all these different things. They were in charge of, if they were going to have sex and get pregnant or not. And also tribes would dictate that, if they had droughts and stuff like that, and they didn't have enough food to feed, it was just common practice not to get yourself pregnant. Don't get yourself pregnant until there's abundant times, right? And then we'll have plenty of food to feed. But we're very, it was all more about the community and less about the self. Right. So we have all these doctors that control our system. Everything is a cattle feedlot. Living in apartments and buildings, not having access to soil. They've taken away everything from you, from nature, and they've disconnected you from nature. So you harm nature, right?
This is because we're still in this collective membership. What we haven't done though is we haven't identified ourselves and taken ourselves out of that collective membership as an individual.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to do. We need to pull ourselves out of it as an individual and say, I'm not a part of this collective membership anymore. I want out. This is enough for me. I want out. I'm going to consolidate all my accounts. I'm going to cash out. See you later. Adios. And I'm out of the system.
Yeah. Well, and it's tough at this point in time because there's not a lot of options, for when you take yourself out of the system. It's tough to live. Some of us are kind of on the skids and homeless, and
but that's what I'm doing is going to eliminate that though, because what I'm doing is gives us protection. It gives us the accounts. It turns in the people that have stolen from us and turns them into the hands of the IRS to do the bidding on them. And what we do by doing that is we prove that we're abundant. And that we've got more credits out there than you could possibly imagine. Besides, in the capacity that I come in, you can't put a value on a human life.
No.
There's no value you can put on a human life.
You can't put a value on a tree.
No.
No life.
But they do. But see, that's the one thing about trademarks. What's real interesting about that is that we exist for the rateable benefit of lenders. That's the key word, rateable. So that's where they're rating us. They're giving us, classing us, and grouping us, and deeming us as credit worthy or not credit worthy.
Yeah, but a lot of that has to do if you have a track history of compliance, then a lot of times you're more apt to get a better credit rating in the system.
Well, yeah, but what happens when somebody forces you into foreclosure, or if you pay off your mortgage and then suddenly you find yourself losing your house? Whose fault is that? Your credit has been destroyed by the acts of others.
Well, and this is blew me away the other day. I was talking to a friend of mine, and he has a master's degree in mathematics and, a small degree in physics, and he was going for his PhD in math. But anyway, he decided he needed to kind of get a job. There was a whole bunch of other stuff that went along with it. But because he's never decided, he's 30 something and he's never gotten credit. He just decided that just really wasn't anything that he wants to do. He doesn't want to overextend himself because he wants to be able to try to live a life, as well. And what happened is that he needed work, and so instead of them doing a criminal background check on people now, they do financial backgrounds on checks for jobs. And so he's like perfect to do tutoring, for people that want to pay for tutoring through some of these businesses that, you can hire a reputable tutor. But the problem is he couldn't pass the financial background check because he had never had credit. So he couldn't get the job.
That's another way to control people. See,
exactly.
And the solution that I'm striving for here eliminates all of that, because that's what it is. I mean, what good is it to? There's all this. It's rateable benefits. They're rating us on certain scales, and in your case, what you just described is on the guy's past credit history. He doesn't have any. So if he doesn't have any, how do you get one? It's crazy. And so, but if it's a default or a foreclosure, then what happens? Now you're deemed a deadbeat liar and cheat. Your credit's destroyed. So any way you look at it, this is all control of that name and the rating around it and what rating it gets, and of course it limits you on your freedoms. It's all freedom limiting.
Yeah, it's all feedlot. That cow produces more milk, so it gets more food. That cow, it's sort of producing, but when it stops producing, then we're going to just full out murder it. We're going to slaughter it. We're going to, and that's what they do to humans too. And we have to kind of realize that's kind of like what's going on. I mean, that's why you go to the hospital and you have a disease, and they actually give you treatments that are going to make your disease worse, and you're going to die.
Right. Well,
because your rating is bad.
It's the body and soul. It's bringing that body and soul together. That essential union has been broken. It's been severed, and it's got to be brought back together. And the way that they look at this now, this is in the abstract. Okay, but this is the way that it's looked at within the system, is that we're all animals. I mean, whether you and I are animals, we do have the equivalent of cattle and sheep and dogs and so on and so forth, because the salvation of this is, okay, well, there's a potentiality that maybe at some point in time the intellect of this person will realize what that thing is out there, and that the thing out there, that form, that thing that they stole from us at birth, belongs to us, and we got to bring it back to us so that we're a complete whole human being, if that makes sense. That's what this is all about. That's how the system is entirely structured to that.
Yeah. Okay, so we have about 10 minutes left. Is there anything that you haven't talked about that you wanted to talk about? Now is the time.
I think that what I started with the mortgage loans. That's real important to grab that point there as far as what these mortgage loans are and what they're hiding within these mortgage loans, and the reason why you can never, ever, ever get anywhere in court with these things. And that's because this is deemed that as a four-corner agreement that's impervious, that the court has taken cognizance of and said it's an unimpeachable contract. And because it's an unimpeachable contract, and because the way they set these things up when this contract was formed, there's a prescriptive path to foreclosure. So what that's doing is there's nothing you can do in court. You have no rights whatsoever on that. So how do you get around that? And that to get around that is to start understanding these intellectual properties and this hidden R, this hidden disclosure of the Circle R, which represents that MERS is a trademark. And with that trademark connects a hidden agreement, and it's that agreement that they're taking away all our rights, title, and interest, and our identity is right through there. And it's a real important point to grab onto, because this is something that we could use to start changing things around pretty quickly, and it gets us out of court. And it's something's got to be done here to end these things. And so the prescriptive path and the courts are killing us, as we well know.
Yeah, that is correct. Okay, so Ken puts a lot of this stuff on his website and his Facebook page for people. So you want to tell them how people can find you again, so that they can look this stuff up? You
can find me at Facebook page Ken Dost, D-O-S-T, or at Facebook page Mortgage Equals, with the equal sign, Copyright Derivative, or the blog Dost Affixtications, which is D-O-S-T, and then affixed, like affixed to a label, and then occasions, A-C-A-T-I-O-N-S. And there's information there. The MERS Nations Bank agreement is posted there for everybody to read and review, and there's a lot of great information there to educate people on patents and trademarks and kind of get people up to speed. There's PowerPoints there to educate people on what we're talking about here, and a lot of good resources there.
Do you have any thoughts to tell people? This is the thing I always tell people. It's even dealing with the medical system and all this other stuff and laws and everything else. I always tell people, you just kind of have to. It's difficult because when you wake up to it, you don't want to deal with it. You start reading it, it's really overwhelming to you. And so I always tell people, just keep at it. It is difficult. These are the difficult thing about this is you have to kind of look yourself in the mirror, and you got to kind of admit to yourself that, my God, I've been lied to all these years. I've been lied to, and the system isn't everything I thought it was. And you have to be able to box that stuff up and kind of throw it out and really start all over. And start with the fundamentals again. And it's hard to do. It's very hard to do. Some people won't ever be able to do it. Some people will never try to do it. But I'm pretty well convinced that this is our solution here. As a matter of fact, I know it is, because everything is based on intellectual properties. We've got to start educating ourselves on what the actuality is and not what the perceived actuality is, if that makes sense. And it's hard to do. It's not easy. Yeah, no,
it's not easy to do.
I love David Icke. David Icke has this quote. I'll probably botch it up, but it's basically what people think is going on and what is really going on doesn't even link up or meet in the middle. They're both
it doesn't.
It away from each other.
It's so directly opposite. It is 180 degrees opposite of what it actually is.
Yeah, my native teacher used to say, whatever you think it is, it's the opposite.
Yes, and that's exactly what's going on here. And what we're doing is we're thinking in the opposite. We're thinking in the opposite when we should be thinking the other way. And it's brilliant what they've done. I mean, they've made us believe that this is a mortgage loan when in fact it's an investment contract. But they've kept on this belief that it's a mortgage loan. And it's just so opposite. I mean, the mindset that we're believing it doesn't exist. It's been dead for 20 years.
Yeah.
It's so completely opposite, and you have to retrain yourself. And I know if you're fighting foreclosure, you're fighting this court battle and everything. And I realize that you have to do that. You have to do that to try to do whatever you can. But you need to start taking a look at the reality of what these things are and educating yourself on what's really going on here, because that's going to be the only way that we're going to ever win these things and turn this picture around.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it's like becoming the 100 monkey. Yes. 30 years I've been doing whistleblowing. I knew back in the old days, people were really in the underground that were doing a lot of this stuff. And, there's a point where even up until 6 months ago, I was just like, we're just not going to make the turn. I mean, we're just not going to do it. And then in the last 6 months, I've just, there are so many amazing people that are popping up onto my radar within the last 2 years that have moved into the social media to try to help get people to understand what's going on. And it's becoming really diverse. And the beautiful thing about it is people are taking a lot of this information. And, we have to, be really grateful for people like the Freemasons, the Montana Freemasons who gave their life, right, for us, and suffered incredibly. And people like Jordan Maxwell, who, was also somebody that was on social media talking about how they were doing a lot of this stuff and how, they've been societies that are, thousands and thousands of years old that have been playing, basically magical spells using language and all kinds of things to control. So we, these our forefathers of, this movement of us freeing ourselves, we have to be really grateful for them and realize that they really, 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 really stepped out off a limb, free fall, where nowadays we have a little bit more groups and people that are, like, you're on my show and you're on my Facebook and I watch your stuff and other people watch your stuff. So we're building, communities. And then these amazing things are these people are branching off into their own branches. I mean, that's what I like about you so much is that you've got your own gig. You're not just following. That's a grassroots people I like, is because, you're like, oh, I'm going down this path. I'm going to study it. I'm going to educate people about it. You're not just following along what other people have done.
No. In regards to other people, other people have done great, fantastic work in the past. I mean, fantastic work to open up the doors. The only thing that we've got to start looking at is that we've got to realize that these things that we're dealing with now, 20 years ago, didn't exist. So this is a whole different ball game here. So the only thing that I try to emulate is that is wait a second here. You can't stop. You can't think that today is the same thing as it was 20, 30 years ago. It's not. It's a totally different ball game here. So we've got to kind of adapt our thinking a little bit and modify our thinking a little bit to take into account these patents and trademarks, because they were never taken into account before. They didn't have to be, because before the last 20 years is when they came into existence.
Yeah. So this is the thing is, like, instead of fighting for ownership over our vessel and trying to prove that we own that vessel, what we need to do is we need to board that vessel. We need to turn the engine on and drive it and have authority over it. And then that will change kind of like, from the enslavement, because now we're in the power. Right. We're in the power seat of our own reality, basically. Yes,
you've got to get in to get out, and getting in is taking boarding that vessel and taking navigation over of it, of a boat that has no vessel, that has no navigation right now except for pirates, and so yes, it's exactly right. You put it very well.
Yeah. So anyway, we're getting ready for the end of the show here. So I just wanted to, let people know that I've had Ken Dost on, DOST. You can find him on Facebook. Always a pleasure to have you on. This is Carrying Stones and Digging Holes radio show, and I'm your host, Bridget Lynn Dolgoff. And this is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And you can find us on Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. I believe we're the oldest radio truth network on the net, I believe. And I think we've been around about 11 years. I'm a newbie on the block. But anyway, you can go to our website and you can learn about all of our hosts and all the different kinds of shows and information that we bring you. And we do it all. We volunteer. So, please help support our network by clicking on the funding page. Anyway, Ken, thanks so much for being on. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
And it goes by so fast, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Thank you for having me on. It was great talking to you again.
Awesome. Thanks, Ken. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you.
All right, everybody. I'll be back next week at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And again, this is Carrying Stones and Digging Holes radio show. And we are listener supported, so help us help you, educate you and the public. All right, everybody. Have a great week. Bye.
Listen to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. And we'll be right back after this message. Welcome to Revolution Radio, where you, the listeners, are in charge. Here at Revolution Radio, we present 48 broadcast hours of news and information each and every day. Revolution Radio never sleeps. Revolution Radio is worldwide and borderless information. Revolution Radio is also commercial-free. Revolution Radio is supported 100% by you, the listeners. And that's why we appeal to you to donate and support this station and its expenses. You can support us in many available options like archive subscriptions, our seed pack selections, or even my woodworking store. And we also even have Revolution Radio's swag. at the Revolution Radio Zazzle store, which you can get t-shirts, coffee cups, even a baby onesie. Or you can just plain donate to the cause. We cannot continue without your support, and your support is what helps pay the bills. So please, if you wish us to continue, please stop by our station support page and drop a dime on us. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps. Is your data safe? Do you have the necessary information to assist you in confidently living through just about any survival situation? Is survival and gardening, off-grid living, medical knowledge, or even natural or man-made EMPs on your list of personal concerns? Do you have your documents and your personal information in a safe place in your hands where you know where it is? Well, check out our preloaded EMP-proof thumb drive. Over 3 gigs of survival documents and how-tos, plus the USDA offline food preservation website, and much, much more, including a surprise bonus we just can't tell you about here. With plenty of room left over to store your most important documents. Imagine if a megavirus or a computer failure took out your bank or all the